I've got a very short keynote. I've got about 7 minutes, and I just want to leave you with one thing that I think is in the book that will really prepare you for the world of work. And if you're already in the world of work, you absolutely need to know how to do this. So to share why what I'm about to tell you is important, I thought I'd share a story that explains how workplaces have changed. So the story goes like this. A young student is trying to get home, and he comes across a river. There's a big river snaking, and he can't sort of find a way to cross the river. And he's getting really, really frustrated, and he looks up and he sees on the other side of the river that there's a monk standing there. So he yells out to the monk, "Hey, how do I get to the other side of the river?" And the monk looks at him and he's confused, and he looks to the right, and he looks to the left of the river, and he says, "You're on the other side." And the whole point of the story is that when it comes to the world of work, we're actually on the other side of technological transformations, of increased diversity, of workplaces no longer being hierarchical, command and control. The world of work where you go to work every day and you just do your job and you leave has gone. 83% of us have to work with other people in order to do our job. So for you to succeed in the new world of work, which is much flatter, much more informal, who you work with is going to be way more important than who you work for, because teams are becoming self-managing, your peers are going to determine your performance reviews, maybe even your pay. So the message today is everything you want is on the other side of learning how to work with people who don't look like you and don't share your background. So in the book, I share 4 things you can do, but one of them that I'm going to share today in the next 4 minutes is the importance of managing your informal network. So 70% of all jobs come through the informal network. So if you're looking for jobs on LinkedIn, it's a little bit late because 80% of all jobs are not advertised. So how do you manage your informal network? Well, if you're in a workplace already, I want you to think about, and even if you're not, I want you to think about anybody you know who gives you access to information on jobs or how to do your job or what's going on in the organization or why decisions are made. Anybody you go to for advice, if you're struggling with something, you want to understand how to do it, or you're having a tough time at work. And then anybody you go to if you're having a bad day. So social support, people who give you that emotional support. That list is your informal network. It's not the business cards. It's not going to weird cocktail hours. It's not doing weird stuff on Zoom. That's not how you build an informal network. The weird thing about informal networks is we often only try and reach out to people when we need something. But actually people who are really good at building informal networks actually pay it forward to start with. They do that as a means of connecting. So for example, I launched a book a couple of weeks ago in New York, and I had my editor, thank you, from HarperCollins. She organized a big lunch with all these industry bigwigs in the publishing world, and I immediately thought, here's an opportunity to pay it forward. Who needs access to these people? Who wants to write a book? Who do I want to connect with that I maybe don't have a connection with that could use this opportunity? So I invited people who I know typically don't have access to these types of individuals as a way to connect them, right? And now one of them is literally going to be publishing a book with my publisher. And I don't need anything from that. I'm not doing this because I want something in exchange. I'm paying it forward. So the best way to do this is to think about if there are people you want to connect with, who are you giving access to information? Who are you giving access to social support? Who are you giving access to advice? Anyone you want to connect with, pay it forward. So 3 things you want to make sure you do once you're building your informal network. The first is make sure you're connecting with people who don't look like you and don't share your background. So we find the more diverse your network, the higher the predictive likelihood you'll be promoted. Because 70% of jobs don't come through, they come through the informal network. So we have to look at how we're diversifying our networks. Workplaces are going to become increasingly diverse, so that's really important. The second thing you want to do, though, is you don't have ample time to connect with everybody, right? So how do you know who's worth connecting with? Well, typically, we want to invest in what we call mutually beneficial relationships, where we know somebody's got our best interests at mind. Now, if you think of your list again, and you go through that, typically we're really good at identifying who's got our back and who doesn't. So that's not something we struggle with. What we struggle with are the people where we're not sure. So we call them ambiguous relationships, right? And typically, that's about 5% of people in your network, and they cause 90% of your anxiety at work. because you have an interaction with them and then you're like, how did that go? Why? I can't tell. Did they like me? Did they have my back? What's going on? And you spend all this mental and emotional energy trying to work out what's going on, right? So make sure you identify those ambiguous relationships and don't invest, right? Just don't invest in them. I'm not saying don't interact. I'm just saying don't spend your information, social support, or advice trying to build a connection with ambiguous relationships because it's going to cause you anxiety. And then the third thing you want to do is generally with your network, have a mix of what we call close versus loose connections. So close connections are people you meet with regularly, and you can go through your list again, you'll be like, I meet with those people regularly, we share a lot of information, they give me a lot of support and advice, that's great. But most of the job opportunities actually come through loose networks. So people who you might meet with infrequently, if you're passing them in the hall, you might have a quick chat. So you need a mix in a network. So my network's made up of a lot of what you call loose connections, and that really helps me. It's how I got my job at Netflix. Like that helps me get access to opportunities, right? Because someone will say, oh, did you know they're recruiting for this job? And actually you might be interested in it, or we've got this opportunity coming up. So try and make sure you're investing in that mix. But the biggest message I wanted to share with you today is don't wait till the end of your career to start doing this. So I gave a talk at LSC the other week and a young grad said to me, but Michelle, I've got nothing to offer. Like say I want to build a relationship with you, I've got nothing to offer. And it blew my mind because I was like, well, just take me as an example. You know I'm launching my book. You know that matters to me. So how could you pay it forward to somebody like me? You could write an Amazon review. You could reach out to me and let me know what you think about the book. You could connect with me and share what you thought about the talk tonight. You could message me on LinkedIn. Like that could be a way for us to connect without you wanting anything. And then once the connection's established, you might then at some point be able to check in. So I think about it like a bank account where you are paying it forward. You're not treating it in a transactional way so that you have that investment so when the time comes, you can really use your connections to help you. But information, advice, and support, that's how you build your informal network. So thank you very much. I hope that's helpful.